Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to make a 6 pieces bustier blouse, just like the one you're seeing on your screen right now. This will be the part 1 of the video. I'll be showing you a very detailed video on how to draft your 6 pieces bustier blouse using the slash and spread method. And in the next video, I'll be showing you the sewing parts. If you are yet to subscribe to my channel, please kindly subscribe, like and share my videos, and put on your notification bell so you'll be notified when I drop the sewing part of the video. So let's get right into it. I'll start by drafting the front pattern. For this top, we are going to be having the zipper at the front. So the first thing I did was to mark 1 inch for my zipper allowance before drawing out my lines. Then I'm going to impute my vertical measurements. From the starting line, I placed the chest line measurement, which is 8.5. Shoulder to the bust point is 10.5. The under bust is 13.5. The waistline is 15.5 and the full length of the top is 22.5. Then I'll go ahead and draw my line across. Then I'm going to label my lines. So this right here is my zipper allowance. I have the shoulder line, the chest line, bust points, under bust, waistline, and the length of my top. I placed half of the shoulder measurements on the shoulder line and on the chest line, and I connected that into a straight line. Then I placed the neck width, which is 3 inches, and the neck depth is 3 inches as well. Then I connected that with my curve. Then I came down by 1 inch from my shoulder line and I connected it to the neck width to form my shoulder slope. Then I got the midpoint of what I have there and I came in by 0.75 inch. And on the chest line, I placed quarter of the bust circumference. Then I connected the 3 points with my curve to form my armhole. Next thing I did was to place half of my bust pan measurements on the bust point line and on the length of the top. Then I connected that into a straight line. Next thing I did was to come down by ½ inch from the bust point line. This top is for a small size, but if you are on a bigger size, you can come down by 1 inch. On the part facing the center front, I marked ½ inch on the under bust line, on the waistline, and on the length of the top. While on the second part, the part facing the side front, I marked 1.25 inch. This top is for a small size. This is why I marked 1.25. If you're on a bigger side, you can make use of 1.5 inch or 2 inches, depending on your bust size. So I placed the same 1.25 on the under bust and on the length of the top. Then I connected them into a straight line. Then the next thing I did was to connect the bust point line to the under bust with a curve, just like that. I did that to the second side. Now we're going to draw out the armhole princess darts. So what I did next was to come up by ½ inch from the bust points line. Then I connected that like so. Then I'm going to connect that point to meet my mid armhole. Then the next thing I'm going to do is to take my darts on the armhole. So from the midline there, I came down by 1 inch. Then I'm going to connect that back into the bust point line. Then the next thing I did was to extend the second dart leg by 1 inch. Then I'm going to redraw my armhole. So I'm just going to redraw my armhole just like that. So the second armhole is the one we are going to follow. On the chest line, I placed quarter of the bust circumference and I added the little darts that we have there. It is about 0.25 inch. And I added 1 inch side seam allowance. And on the waistline, I placed quarter of the waist circumference. Then I added the darts that I have there. I added it back before adding my 1 inch side seam allowance. And on the length of the top, I placed quarter of the hip circumference and I added the darts back before adding my 1 inch side seam allowance. Then I connected my lines. I connected the side seam allowance also. Next thing I did was to place my bust dart. My bust dart is simply the difference between the front and the back waistline. So the difference here is 1 inch. So on the side seam, I placed 1 inch below the bust point line and I connected it to meet the bust point, like so. So this is how you draft your princess dart bustier. So I'll go ahead and cut this out before we alter it into our 6 pieces bustier blouse. So I proceed to add ½ inch to the down part. This will serve as an allowance to turn with the lining. And I went ahead to extend the line to meet the zipper allowance line. Then I'll cut out now. Then I slashed my bust dart. I'm going to be closing that with my tape. Then I'm going to align my side seam. So I'm going to set this aside and I'll work on the back pattern. So for the back pattern, this right here is my center back. All my measurements will be starting from that point. From the starting line, I placed my chest line measurements, which is 8.5. Then I placed the waistline. The front waistline is 15.5. So the back waistline is 1 inch shorter than the front waistline, which is 14.5. And the full length of the top is 22.5 for the front. Then I'm going to mark 21.5 for the back length because the back is 1 inch shorter than the front measurements. Then I extended my lines across. I have the shoulder line, the chest line, waist line, and the length of the top. I placed half of the shoulder measurements on the shoulder line and on the chest line. Then I connected that into a straight line. Then I marked my neck width, which is 3 inches, and the back neck depth is 1 inch. And I connected that into a curve. I came down by 1 inch from the shoulder line and I connected to the neck width. Then I got the midpoint of what I have there and I came in by 0.5 inch. I placed quarter of the bust circumference on the chest line and I connected the 3 points together to form my armhole. Next thing I did was to place half of my bust pan measurements on the chest line and on the length of the top. Then I connected that into a straight line. I came down by 1 inch from the chest line, and on the waistline I marked ½ inch on both sides of the bust pan line. And I came up by 2 inches from the length of the top. Then I connected the lines together. My back pattern will be a shoulder dart pattern, but if you want, you can also make it a princess dart. All you have to do is to connect the mid armhole to the chest line. But for mine, I'll be making use of a shoulder dart. So all I'm going to do is to divide what I have on my shoulder slope into 2. Then I'll connect it to meet my chest line, just like that. So on the chest line, I placed quarter of my bust circumference and I added 1 inch for side seam allowance. And on the waistline, I placed quarter of the waist circumference. Then I replaced the 1 inch for darts before adding my 1 inch side seam allowance. And on the length, I placed quarter of the hip circumference. Then I added 1 inch side seam allowance. Then I'm going to connect the lines. Then I also added ½ inch allowance to the down part. And that will be all. I'll go ahead and cut this out. So I have the center back and the side back. You can see that the side front and the side back are now aligning. The next thing I'm going to do now is to work on the design that we have on the front pattern. So on the neckline there, what I did was to come in by 1.5 inches. Then I also marked the depth of the neckline. So what I did was to come down by 4 inches for mine. Then from the center front, I came in by 1 inch. Then I extended the line to meet the zipper allowance line, like so. The next thing I did was to connect that point to meet the neckline, just like that. Then the next thing I did was to extend the 1 inch to the length of my top. So I just marked 1 inch on the length, then I'll extend that downward. So I'll be cutting off this neckline while this place will be replaced by another fabric entirely. Then for the curve that we have at the end of the top, you will notice that there is a curved part at the hem of the top around the center front. So what I did was to come up by 2 inches from the down part. Then I'll connect that point to meet this point with my curve. I'm going to connect the points together like so. So this part will be replaced by a different fabric. So I'm just going to use my marker to highlight this so you can see clearly. I was supposed to connect the curve to meet the 1/2 inch that we have at the hem of the top. So I'm just going to redraw my curve to meet the hem line like so. Then I'm also going to extend that line to meet the zipper allowance, and that will be all. I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to separate that from the center front, just like so. So that will be all. Next thing I'm going to do now is to alter this into our 6 pieces blouse. I'm going to set aside the center piece. So I'm going to take notes of my waistline on the pattern. Now, for the center front, I'm just going to measure what I have on the waistline, and I'll divide that into 2 equal halves. Then I'm just going to connect that point to the hemline with a straight line like so. Then I'm going to slash that line up to the waistline. Then I'm going to slash to the side like so. Make sure you don't slash that completely. Now I'm going to get a fresh pattern paper and I'm going to spread this on it. You can decide to spread this as much as you want, but as a guide, for mine, I made the distance between my slashed line to be 1 inch. So the distance between that point to the slashed line is 1 inch. So I'm going to use my tape to hold that down. So that is how much I want my 6 pieces to spread out. You can decide to spread yours as much as you want. Then the next thing I'll do is to connect the down parts with my curve like so. And I went ahead to cut this out. So I'm going to set this aside and do the same thing for the side piece. So for the side front, I'm going to measure what I have on the waistline without the seam allowance. I'll get the midpoint. Then I'll connect that with a straight line to the hem line. Then I'm going to slash that to the waistline. Then I'm going to slash the waistline as well. For the side front, I'm going to slash both sides of the waistline. Then I'm going to spread this on the pattern paper. The same thing applies to the side front as well. I will let the distance between the slashed lines to be 1 inch, just like we did for the center front. So the distance for both sides will be 1 inch. I'm going to hold that down with my tape. And the other side also will be 1 inch. I'm going to hold them down with my tape. And I'll connect the down part with my curve. I'm going to connect the down part like so. And I'm going to cut that out. So I'm going to move to the back part now. The same thing applies to the back pattern as well. I'm going to get the midpoint of both and I'm going to slash them like so, and I'll spread it to a new paper. Just make sure the distance you leave for the slashed lines should be 1 inch so that everything can align. Then I'm going to connect the down part like so, and I'll cut out. So the same thing applies to the center back. I only slashed one side of the center back, and I made sure the distance between the spread is 1 inch. Then I'll connect that and I'll cut out. So that is how you draft your 6 pieces bustier blouse using the slash and spread method. You can see how beautiful it looks like. So in the next video, I'm going to be showing you how you can sew your 6 pieces bustier blouse. Do not forget to put on your notification bell so you'll be notified when I drop the sewing part of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.